Alright, welcome back for another Spellforce 3 replay cast. This is going to be another first round matchup from the Dragon's Eye tournament, and this is going to be a matchup between Saturas and RisingSun. So we're going to be on Evergreen Forest, and let's get started. Alright, so we've got RisingSun as the blue Orcs, and we've got Saturas as the red Dwarves. My volume up a little bit here. So let's check heroes. We've got RisingSun going for the occultist, and we've got Saturas going for the high hierophant. RisingSun going to the left. Got his warg running down the middle, which Saturas is intercepted. Looks like he's aiming to disrupt the creeping of Saturas, but Saturas is going to the left also, which is something new for me. I do not often see, I'm not sure if I've ever seen someone go that direction, and that's not to say that it's not the right decision. And this is pretty good micro by Saturas just to keep, moving his Mole Rider and pick off that warg. And now RisingSun is kind of blind on the map. Doesn't have his warg to go around and scout and see where Saturas is expanding. I'm so glad that someone's using this ability. Got wrecked by a couple zombies, so obviously it's pretty vulnerable, but what is that called? Fire totem? Totem of flames.
Our heroes grew stronger.
So what do we got here? We got Kill Shot, Bone Breaker, Totem of Flames, Brute Force, and Deep Waters for Saturas. Got the Mole Rider going forward and a Guardian accompanying him for creeping. There. So for RisingSun, so he went left, then to the front, center sector, and then to the left again. And his abilities are Demonic Pact, Blood Harvest, Brute Force, and the typical Blood Sacrifice and Blood Confluence combination. And doesn't look like he's got any more troops out on the field since losing that Warg Rider, so he'll just continue on creeping. He's gonna upgrade this flag, and this Mole Rider will not be able to stop that. So you can see Saturas is gonna send him elsewhere. He's continuing on with his creeping path. Let's see where he upgrades next. And whoops, I clicked on the wrong tab up there. So yep, Wood and Hunt on his first sector. So not upgrading anything. See what he goes for next. And in case I didn't already mention, he's on 4 stone and 1 hunt in his main.
Our cowl grows stronger.
Got 3, 4 wood, 2 hunt. He's got some wood to spend, some workers to put to work. He's getting another lumber here. Picking up that corner sector. Make sure he's got control that iron. Lumber here. Lumber there, and a single stone. And lumber there. And Saturas is putting his Mole Rider to work, harassing the wood line. There you go. Nice seeing that Totem of Flames working. Probably want to place that a little bit further back, maybe near where your hero is, so that the Medusas won't target it. But he's going to deal with this camp regardless. He's got 4 Guardians to help him out. So RisingSun is doing the same over here. That he's using his hero by himself, which that's probably going to take some potions.
Our workers are under attack.
He's on 5 potions. Assuming some of which he's picked up. Disabled these guys just briefly. I'm not sure if Nullify is worth using to disable them because it costs health. But maybe for the attacks that it prevents them from doing for, you know, a second or two. It's worth it. Get Blood Confluence off there just to give himself some extra health. He's got some scoundrels on the way. It looks like they might have got sent to deal with that Mole Rider. Missed that. And quick look at inventory. So he went armor level 2. We noticed Aqua do the same thing, so I wonder if one of them picked that up from the other. No item pickups elsewhere. So he's content on his side of the map, and it looks like Saturas is as well. He's going to go pick up the corner sector, and not yet going tier 2. What about Rising? Rising is on his way to tier 2, so we're going to start getting some iron saturation up in these two sectors. I figure that's why he's selectively upgrading these two as he's going tier 2. Probably get an iron mine slapped down over here as well. Both players have pretty well balanced income or economies, excuse me. And yeah, mostly scoundrels out on the field. Saturas is going to pressure on Rising's Medusa camp area, and this is going to get stopped. So that's good. You know, he claimed his side of the map and immediately started applying pressure. And that's one suggestion I would make for people who are newer players, or anybody who plays the game really, is that once you have captured all the resources on your side of the map, given that both players kind of just stay on their half, once you've done that and you're starting to upgrade your economy and whatnot, I notice a lot of newer players, they like to build up their army and kind of sit in one of their sectors where they know they're safe until they feel like they have a big enough army. It's always worth it to at least poke yourself forward and see what your opponent has and apply some pressure if you can. And if you think they have a better army and you don't want to take a fight, then you can back up and at least get them questioning whether or not they're going to be under attack. You don't want to have your army sitting still. And oh, there we go. That was a good move by Saturas. You saw what is that ability called that he just used? I'm gonna pull that up in a second. But he used his knockback ability to disrupt the combination that RisingSun was using. Again, with the occultist, you're going to use blood sacrifice to cause bleeding on units near you. He did that to the units that he pulled in with Nullify, and then he's going to use blood confluence to remove the bleeding from them and give him health. Now, before he was able to get off blood confluence, we had the Saturas' Grand Hierophant using Bone Breaker. There you go. And it does knockback, so he interrupted that and prevented him from getting his heal off. And this is good pressure. These goblins the scoundrels are not strong enough to burst down these axe wielders, so he can deal a little bit of damage. And if he feels like he can't take a fight at the sector center, he'll just back off. But he's buying time for himself to expand this sector here, which is good for Saturas. And I'm going to go back to Rising's view. If I haven't mentioned this in some of the previous casts, I'm going to aim to kind of break apart the game by taking turns looking at the player's perspective so you can see what information they're working off of, as well as going to free spectating so we can see the map as a whole. So sending this scoundrel horde with the occultist back, and looks like he's going to try to retake this sector. Let's go back to free spectating and see how. Right, so that's a good move. Saturas is pressuring the iron mine. He can't easily and efficiently get to the back of these bases right now. He's going to teleport to defend. And the reason I pointed out those two is again because these corner sectors have iron. Iron being a very valuable resource for the Orcs. And so he pressured the one on the front that's the most vulnerable. Now he's going back to protect his base. So That was a good move. He had this sector center upgrading while it was being attacked, while he was repairing it, so that if he could keep it alive, it would reach the next level and get a little bit of a health buff, so he could just keep it for longer. And again, he's not sitting here and waiting to see what's going to happen. You know, he knows that he's within walking distance. If it gets attacked again, it's not going to get destroyed immediately, because Rising does not have a bunch of hunters and brutes out. So he can go harass elsewhere, and then if he sees Rising enter his territory, he can come back. So I will say I like that both of these players are kind of keeping moving. They're staying active. And Rising is sacking these iron mines. He's deconstructing these iron mines. And I figure he's of the opinion he's going to lose this sector regardless, so he might as well regain some of his resources. You can deconstruct your buildings and regain some of the resources that you spent. And you're going to see players who are maybe more experienced or knowledgeable about the game. They're going to try to deconstruct as many structures as they can whenever they know that they're going to be losing a sector. And until RisingSun gets his hunter numbers or his brute numbers up, you're going to see him losing most of these exchanges, because this amount of axe wielders with the high Hierophant are not going to lose to a bunch of scoundrels. And I think he can probably stay here. He's doing a good job. Now, I mentioned this in a previous game, where once you start seeing hunter numbers coming out from the orc, you want to be careful with your hero, because this occultist can use nullify and kind of pull you into a high damage situation where your hero's at risk. So you saw Saturas was doing good hero movement and kind of bringing him back to the back lines. He was opposite of the sector center of the occultist. He was creating some distance between himself and the hunters, and so that's good play. And there you go. So that was just a little bit of miss micro, but he's getting himself out of there. He's got a combat balloon out on the field. These are always a fun unit to see. There's something very cinematic about them. And I'm gonna quickly switch over to Rising's view and check out. So he's got 5 hunters. So I don't think that's enough to make a huge difference, but just the fact that he's got 5 out here is gonna mean he's gonna get a dramatically increased damage output from where he was at with just a bunch of scoundrels. He can threaten this combat balloon if he can get them underneath it. Let's see. Yep. That's good target prioritization. He knows that the combat balloon is going to be one of the damage dealers in this army. Move his hunters within the range, so that if Saturas responded and tried to pull it away, he'll be able to knock it out of the sky in time. You see the same thing here. So there we go. You know, targeting high value units, targeting damage dealing units that have low health. That's good, and he's pushed them off for now. So let's go back to now Saturas' view. And he's in a good position because he has more sectors than the orc player. He's got territory on the other player's side of the map, and he destroyed a sector that's very valuable to his opponent, which is this iron sector in the corner. So now he's taking advantage of the downtime to get some new armor. He's got the level 3 armor. I wonder why he didn't go for the weapon. But you know, there's a bunch of different ways you can choose to itemize. Maybe he figures he's got to prepare himself for that nullify and hunter combination, and just make sure that he's surviving so that he can get his damage output done. I'm gonna recheck abilities. So 3 brute force, 1 concentration, kill shot, bone breaker, and totem of flames he already had, and he's at level 2 deep waters. So now you can see as these hunters start throwing that his damage output on sector centers is way higher. This amount of health being taken off was taken way longer earlier, even when this outpost was a lower level. And going back to free spectating, this fortified outpost is holding on. You'd like to see RisingSun repairing this, and there you go. He started. He's probably not going to be able to get over to save it in time, but at least he took out this sector, and he stopped his port maybe because, oh, maybe it got interrupted by the sector getting taken down. If you're teleporting to a building and it is destroyed, your Stone of Homecoming channel is going to get canceled. You're going to have to find a new target. So what he could do is, even though he lost his sector, he could, if he thinks it's a favorable move, yep, he's going to do it right now, teleport to one of these structures that's still remaining. Even if you don't have sector control, as long as you still have a structure that is under your ownership, you can teleport to it. It's kind of hard to see the hunters because they're dark and they blend in with this like dark, kind of shadowy grass, but looks like they're starting to put in some work. I'm going to switch views to Rising and just check his unit count. 4 brutes, 4 hunters, 16 scoundrels. I'm not sure if that was just by chance or if Saturas is manually assigning axe wielders to pick off the hunters, but he lost a couple hunters there. I want to say he had like 8 or 10 before the beginning of this battle. And there you go. They're called hunters for a reason. They're coming for the High Hierophant, and I figured at this point he knows that he's got him on the run. He's very low health. He's got to be very careful to not get caught by Nullify here. Oh man. Yep. Just very small movements can make a difference. Didn't have time to teleport. If he tried to channel his Stone of Homecoming, he would have got disrupted anyways. So Rising Sun, that was a good pick by him. Got the hero, regained his side of the map, and now this is going to be a critical point in the game because both armies took a beating there. Rising is now on the advantage as far as population, and he's at his tier 2 timing where he's gonna, if he can start amassing a ball of hunters and brutes, or aim for tier 3, that's when he's gonna become scary. I'm not sure what the answer to Orc tier 2 is as Dwarves, but it's certainly not tier 1 units. At least I would not think so. Difference in population is starting to increase. Saturas has a couple idle workers, so something he'll probably want to handle in the near future. And I will check Rising's items and skill build in a second, and looks like, yeah, so Saturas is going for tier 3, and he still hasn't upgraded one of his sectors. He's got a lot of food and iron. I'm assuming that, just looking at his resource balance, I'm assuming that he's going to be going for berserkers once he hits tier 3. We'll see what he does. Rising has got a lot of extra stone. Could probably unassign some stone workers. Neither of these adamantium golems have been taken. We'll keep an eye on that. I don't think this is a situation where you can handle this army. Although Rising does not really have a front line, so if you can teleport on top of this or somehow position yourself to get on top of this, you could clear those hunters out pretty quickly. It's just, can you get the right positioning? Because if you try to just run straight at this army, Rising Sun is just gonna use kiting micro. He's gonna throw a wave of spears, back up, throw a wave of spears, back up. And looking at the population difference, that's not gonna work for Saturas. 30 extra siege damage against buildings for these brutes. And that's probably the right move for Rising Sun to teleport. He did teleport to a nearby location, but he just wanted to make sure he didn't take any unnecessary damage because he probably didn't like the that engagement, how that was starting. So that's good. You don't always have to use your Stone of Homecoming when you're traveling a far distance. It can be very useful for just getting to the next sector that's in a good position for whatever move you want to make next. Again, I really like how both players are being very, very active on the map. And unfortunately, these golems, you know, they have the potential to deal a lot of damage, but they have very poor armor. They have no resistances other than siege. And yeah, I'm not sure. Sometimes I wonder about how to use golems in this game as a dwarves. And it looks like Saturas gave up there, which, you know, at that point I think that was a reasonable move. I wonder what would have happened if he had some more time to get some berserkers out, but that hunter mass was just going to be a pain to deal with. And you know, Rising's population boomed up pretty quickly. You know, it was probably only over the course of like 5 minutes he gained like 70 population or so, maybe a little bit longer than that. But that was a very good match. You know, back and forth action, pressure on both sides. You saw once Rising hit his mid-tier timing, started getting his hunters out, the tide of battle turned pretty quickly. You know, his damage output increased a lot. He was able to get some hero picks. And, excuse me, I said I was going to do this earlier, but I did not check how Rising had built his heroes. So he was on 2 Death Resilience, 2 Blood Harvest, 1 Brute Force, Blood Sacrifice, and Blood Confluence, Demonic Pact and Nullify, and he had 1 level into, well, there is only 1 level you can put into Sanguine Burst and Blood Like Tar. And then Saturas was kind of stuck where he was. He did pick up Barrage and 1 more point into Brute Force, but all the other abilities were the same. And as far as items, oops. So Saturas was still on his level 3 armor, and Rising did not go back to the shop after getting his level 2 armor, but obviously didn't make a difference. You know, you'll see some players who won't go to the shop even when they have a ton of money because they feel like their hero is more well utilized out on the field and just staying active. So, good game to both players, and let's check out the end game stats. Pretty even overall. That's confusing, him playing as the Orcs and having the Dwarf symbol there. And yeah, you can see, you know, Saturas had the lead in the kills. He had the lead in buildings destroyed, but most of that pressure was early game. Pretty even damage dealt by the heroes. God, look at that. That one battle really wiped out a bunch. But you can see, you know, the recovery from that went from 24 to 57. And Saturas, that is, went from 24 to 57. And Rising went from 48 to 96 in about the same time. Soon to be 124. So the recovery, you know, he probably had a more developed economy as well. Jeez, a lot of swings and resources. You know, there was a lot of combat going on between these two players, which you see reflected in their resources owned, because they're focusing on how they're managing their army, casting abilities and whatnot, and you just can't do 2 things at the same time. So they both ended up floating a couple resources here and there, and then, you know, spending all that once the combat quieted down. All right, well, that's that. I'll see you on the next one.